Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Cacophony, where we are no longer stuck in the past. I am your favorite host, Jelo, and with me I've got.
Wolf.
I am the Senate.
And this is Whiskey.
All right, and this time we are going over Volume 7, episode. What is it, 9?
9.
I've lost track.
We're 9.
The Rise
Right,
of
no.
Weiss Walker.
Right, episode 9. The pot is finally starting to boil over, and this has made our longest script for this thing yet. So let's jump right into it.
It didn't have to be now. Let's be very clear. You just accepted like my random thoughts on this as a script.
No, Jello
No,
is
no.
just extremely extra.
He knew that I was coming back for this podcast and decided that he had to hit me with everything.
Yes, that was it. So
Sure, we'll go with
let's start hitting sand with things and start off with the slight standoff between Robin and Ironwood at the beginning. Robin tries to kind of force Ironwood into a position where he has to reveal the truth with her semblance.
Yeah, they start off with him really backed into a corner, which is something we've seen him progressively these past few episodes. Ironwood is getting more and more backed into a corner. He started off this volume really gung-ho, really I wouldn't say cocky, but he had a plan. But things have, they haven't been going his way. He's been having a bad time lately.
He deserves a break. I love that man.
He is wonderful.
If you haven't seen the subreddit, I think it's 2 Seats Ironwood. Please check it out. It's amazing.
Well, personally,
We'll
I
have to
think.
give it...
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I mean, I've not been a fan of Robin's character overall in general. I'll
Get
say
out.
that first of all.
You're done. You're banned. Be gone.
I will gladly take that ban. I have not liked her since she was introduced. I've been calling her
2-person
Discount Tony
podcast now.
Stark.
You're both gone.
Look, the way she has been throwing around these horrible nicknames. Look, she is just a Discount Tony Stark. With these
Personally, I mean, her actions are, I guess, relevant and understandable from her perspective, but it still seems like to me, it's just like we're supposed to root for someone who's actively undermining a military operation. And as the difference between civilian and military with questions of confidentiality, that seems like something that's important, but we are immediately rooting, or I suppose supposed to sympathize with Robin and her stance on this, despite the fact that, in my opinion, there are times when, for operational security, you need to do things that do not make sense to the general public or to other leaders. If you told everyone that the Manhattan Project was being built in the deserts of Arizona and that millions of dollars were being funneled towards this, then obviously things would become less and less controlled. Now, I'm not directly comparing Ironwood and his Amity project to the Manhattan Project, but I think security and confidentiality are concepts that is a very different thing between civilian and military understandings. At least that's my perspective on that.
Alright, I can see that. I've always kind of seen her more in a gray light than someone to be sympathized with. I don't know, that could just be me. I try to look for more grays than black and white, because that just makes it more interesting for me.
I mean, I think, right, that it's completely fair that, if you don't like her, you don't like her, right? Like, I think that's completely fair. But I do like her simply because I like the throw it around nicknames. I like the character. I like the fact that she isn't, completely on the up and up either. Even though she does expect everyone else to kind of be on the up and up, but she's not. I like that about her. Like, she's very much...
terrorism is bad, okay?
I mean,
That's a strong accusation leveled. I mean, about Rob. I mean, if great, I'm fumbling over my words, but I
No,
think
it's
you
fine.
guys know.
It happens. It really does happen.
I never fumble over my words.
Robin, I think she has good intentions, as do most of the characters, and but she definitely fits the theme of this volume of I'm trying to do what I think is best,
Right.
but you know where I'm going with that. And that's I think that's a recurring theme this volume with you've got Robin, Ruby, Ironwood, Jock at some level.
Yeah.
I mean,
No.
self-interest is self-interest not a legitimate stance?
That is what I'm going for, self-interest.
Mm.
But it's a good standoff. Ironwood's backed
Alright.
into a corner. I love it. Give the man a break.
Yep. Well, someone just happens to give him a break. So Weiss
Okay.
just bursts into the room and has this recording of Jacques and Watts.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Best girl.
I'm going to bring up a question to everyone here. What did you think about it? Because I know a lot of and I hear those coins, whoever it is, stop.
Sorry.
I'm going to just put an end to that right now. Stop on the recording. That will get annoying very quickly.
I didn't
Ignoring
think you
that,
could hear
though,
it.
I can. Ignoring that, though, I want to pose a question to everyone here. What did you think about them immediately just having Weiss come straight in and just tell everyone immediately? Because a lot of people, the general kind of consensus was, maybe she'll hold it, maybe she'll wait, maybe we won't get it until after they get away from the manor, you know. So what was everyone's thought about them just immediately like, no, right there, right in the middle of dinner, interrupted, I have news.
I'm going first. I'm going first.
Oh, sorry.
I call
sorry.
dibs.
Go ahead.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Someone else. I don't want to be a hog.
Well, I'll go first.
No,
All right, go ahead. Yeah, you posed the question. It's a really good question. I
My
didn't
answer
even.
to my
Yes.
question is that I'm actually glad they did. I'm glad they didn't hold it. Maybe they could have held it, and it would have made for something interesting. But I'm glad they didn't. I'm glad it was just, hey, here it is. Here's this news. We're moving on. Next thing.
Yeah, no, that was a really, really good twist because in other media, you often see them hold on to that huge game-breaking news sometimes, and they don't bust it out until this last minute.
Mm-hmm.
And so having this Watts, her finding out, Weiss not knowing who Watts is, but these other characters knowing that, oh, hey, this is Watts. This guy's supposed to be dead, and he's hooked up with Big Bad. Her bringing that to the forefront immediately was just such a relief because I was so afraid she was just going to sit on that for a few episodes.
In other words, no bullshit.
Yes.
I mean, that's because she's best girl. She just has to.
I agree.
She has to
Keep
take
going.
the information and
so
puts it right there. But I do think that I would have been interested in. She was going to bring the information front and center either way, but I thought that was going to be a moment where Ironwood wasn't going to be bailed out by something external like Weiss. He was going to have to face, sort of tying the question back together with the first one. I thought that, yeah, I liked what Weiss did, but I'm not sure if I liked exactly when she did it. I know that doesn't make sense because literally the whole thing is about doing it immediately, but.
No,
So,
I think it's fair, though.
Yeah,
Like,
I think we could see.
forcing the
we
general
could've
to do truth semblance.
Go ahead, Jelo.
I do that so many times. No, I think we could have seen a little bit more out of Ironwood, but at the same time, give him a break.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I think no. So, Senate, I'm gonna have to disagree with you. But in the love of democracy, it's going to be a kind disagreement. Weiss is not best girl at all. But she has shown some amazing traits this volume. She's continuing to be I have loved watching her this volume. She has just that sass has been on point. It has been great. And I am not a fan of sassy characters. So yeah, I don't even remember what we're talking about. I'm just absolutely gone already.
Weiss,
Just Weiss being good and being
But you know,
satisfying.
that does really, and I'm taking over your job now, Jello. You're fired. But
That happens a lot. I always get back.
it does just it helps transition so well into the next topic of her just taking charge and her finally sort of standing up to her father after so long and arresting him for this. There's no other way to put it than treason.
I gotta stop myself. I'm sorry.
I gotta say, this was at the same time really satisfying, but on the other hand, I can't. There's something missing here. What I mean is, I feel like Jacques just kind of he crumbled. Last episode, he was devious and going at Ironwood with everything he has and all these different playing of words, talking about Penny, all that good stuff, and now he's pulling at his collar and he's got this sweaty brow and stumbling.
Yeah.
But, I mean,
So
that's kind of the point, though. Like, Jacques was never a
Yeah,
big player.
yeah,
What's going on here?
I
right?
agree with that.
He's very much. He didn't expect his credentials to be used in what they were. He was already thrown off his game by that happening and the news that he had already received during the meeting, right before Weiss came in and interrupted, that the heat had been turned off in Mantle. On top of that, Jacques has never really come off as someone who would be able to stand up amongst a lot of pressure. He needs to be able to have that control and maintain that control. The second he loses it, he kind of loses his footing a lot.
Yeah, that's the impression I get from Watts, or not Watts, Jacques. He's just
Jacques.
the other mustached one.
He's a paper
Yeah.
tiger.
Yeah, he's just
That's
a
a good
character
explanation.
so used to being. He's a character that's just so used to being in control that the moment that control is taken away from him, he just has no idea what to do. He just doesn't know how to adapt.
Paper tigers fold in the snow.
I've never heard
Alright.
that expression before.
It works though, quite well here for quite apt for Jacques.
I literally
Okay.
just came up with that one, so.
But yeah, I think it's it's interesting that we see Jacques practically immediately out of the picture. I think that's great because I don't think he needed to be in the picture majorly. Yeah, it would have been great for character development for Weiss and Winter maybe, but it's not 100% necessary, and I'm glad they kind of surprised me with that. And that's
I know this
the
might
route they went.
I know this might be controversial, but it's the same deal as Adam. He could have been used more, but he isn't.
Which is
Well,
fair.
I mean, that's part of I think a limited amount of screen time and a limited amount of run time to spread around these characters and spread around these subplots, and we sort of have to accept that. But I don't think that they incredibly mishandled it. I think it was
No.
fine. It's just there's
Yeah,
some potential there.
Yeah, listening to you guys, I can't take back what I said. It makes sense now.
And that's the thing, though. It may be. I know RWBY is extremely fictional, extremely out there, but you don't always get that satisfying ending. And a lot of people were wanting Jock to die. I admit I was kind of in that same camp, but seeing Weiss, just whip out that ID, arrest him, that was pretty satisfying. Oh, Senate just fucking died. Long
get
live
it
the
back in a minute.
Empire.
Keep going.
But no, it's just there's not always that satisfying ending, and you got to be okay with that sometimes. But something tells me Jock has proven himself to be pretty sleazy. Something tells me he's gonna slither his way back in.
All right. Maybe that. Maybe something else.
Moving on.
Well, it kind of depends on what the whole. I just lost my train of thought.
Moving on to the next
So,
thing.
So yes, let's move on to the next thing with do I just want to do a quick shout out to the picture of old Nicholas Schnee in the background
Yeah,
and
I
all
think
that
that
armor?
looks
I
interesting.
think that was very cool, just as an art piece in and of itself, even if it's just, you know.
Mhm.
I wonder if he fought
was-
in the Great War.
He
you
did.
know?
I
No,
believe
did.
he
that
was born after it.
Nicholas Schnee.
Yeah, like really shortly after it. I remember it from the World of Remnant.
Oh, that's right. I think. I
Yeah,
can't
Oh,
remember.
okay. It's
he
been a
took
long time since I
advantage of
saw that. But
the open economy and got all that stuff.
Yeah, it's been a while since I watched it, so I'm going to shut up on something
Yes.
I'm not familiar with.
I'll quote
But-
the wiki. The Schnee Dust Company was founded by Nicholas Schnee in the aftermath of the Great War.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go off on a small little tangent again about the fact that this also assumes that like around that same time people were still using suits of armor, swords. So probably the Great War was still fought with medieval type weapons as well.
Well,
I'm
he
still
did have.
thinking about that.
That is interesting, but he did have that armor and all that stuff, which is actually the same armor as which Weiss summons. Which
Yeah,
someone
so
actually,
Yeah.
someone had pointed out that was actually really cool that when Jacques tries to run away, which, great idea, in the doorway, it's like it's standing the ghost of his father-in-law is standing up to him.
Yeah.
And interesting. Yeah, that's actually interesting. I like that.
Mhm.
no, oh dang, that's just
That's really
you're
good.
going from swords and shields to high caliber sniper rifle scythes in 80 years. That's a hell of an arms race.
Less than 80 years if you think about it, because it's founded after the Great War. And he's like an old man in that photo or painting.
I think the Schnees are just, naturally white. That's okay. Naturally white haired. I'm not racist.
You can edit that out in post, right?
Oh no, that stays in.
No, yeah, keep that in. Let it be known. Right, so with that, we can move into how Mantle's being attacked with the heat off, and Maria and Pietro are kind of trying to give people shelter in their little shop.
Everyone's angry, and everyone finds out about it at the same time.
In other words, a shit show.
Winter gets to call out her dad finally. She's happy, I'm sure.
I think
So at
she was
least
actually
some
rather
level.
angry.
Yeah,
I mean, there's got to be
There's
some
some
level
happy
of
anger.
satisfaction, I suppose, in the middle.
I think
Someone's happy.
it was a happy angry.
Use your hatred. Use your anger.
Right. So all that anger, it causes the Grim attack, and we get these big old mega Goliaths that are like woolly mammoths and the sabers, and there's just a swarm of these things actually. This is probably the is it the largest Grim attack, or is it the largest animated Grim attack?
You know what? I'm going to go out and say that the largest Grim attack was probably Beacon, and that this was simply a time when we can animate more of it.
Yeah,
because
that's fair.
we haven't seen a literal mountain exploding or Grim dropping out of the sky yet. I mean, there's still time, of course, but I think that the animation shift has really given the opportunity to show the breadth of like the Grim attack and Salem's ability to go to a natural history museum and pick out some skeletons.
I do like how Atlas is all prehistoric Grim.
Yeah, they
Which,
said
by
that.
the way, where is my T-Rex?
What
I think
killed
they
the
said-
dinosaurs?
I think they said they were
Yes.
doing like Ice Age stuff at the panels. Quote me if I'm. Don't quote me if I'm right, wrong. I don't know. Someone who watches the panels more than me will probably correct us. But yeah, Mantle's not having a good time.
No, it's not.
Mobilize your troops, darn it.
Right, well, that's what they're starting to try and figure out how to do. And this gets into how everyone just kind of tries to plan in front of the rest of the council members without giving anything away.
You skipped behind. We're going back and forth a little bit here in terms of order,
Yes.
but still, yeah,
Yes, we are.
I enjoyed the fact that everyone's just kind of planning out right there in the front of everyone. It's like, but if we do this, she'll know, and it's like, you do realize who's there with you, right? And I love the fact that the show actually points it out. Like Robin's like,
Yeah.
"Hi, hey, still here."
I mean,
Yeah,
when
they
you're
just-
in a high tension
Oh
situation,
no, I get
you
it.
don't.
I get why they
yeah.
didn't think about it in show.
Yeah, they
right?
just
I
got
just found it enjoyable and fun.
They just got caught up in the heat of the moment, and I get that. That happens. So
But I mean, it works and it makes sense, right? It's a good scene. I enjoyed it. I liked it.
Mhm.
And I like the fact that it was Robin that kind of immediately came out and said, "Hi, still here." Yeah.
Yeah, that's
That
definitely
was
her.
fun.
mm-hmm.
She definitely, I don't know how to say this, acts like she has a bunch of power, I guess.
I mean,
She has
technically she
influence.
does now because I think she just got a council seat.
Well, yeah, she does, but she always
I
seemed
mean-
like someone to me that, it's like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, I'm definitely in charge here.
She does have an air of charisma,
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
suppose.
I guess that's what I'm saying here. But right, through all that, I'm saying too much. Crap.
It
Everyone
happens to
kind
the
of comes
best of them.
together, and especially with Oscar, they're able to convince Ironwood to bring things into the open.
At least what Ironwood knows.
Right.
Mm.
I want to point out, right, that I love, you have a little bit before that, you have Robin confronting Ironwood. You have Robin confronting Ironwood about, like, hey, what do you know? And her kind of rolling that into, I thought it was this, but instead, right, I think it's turned into something much more than that. And I think it's you actually trying to protect Mantle and Atlas from something else. And I wonder, while she's saying all of that, they have a scene where they flash to, Ruby, Blake, Yang, and Weiss, right? And you have Ruby closest to the camera, and you just have Weiss, kind of both of her eyes glance over at Ruby. I'm very curious as to why they did that, right? And what the point of that was.
Well, if I recall correctly, it was Weiss and Yang who believed more in disclosing information, and it was Ruby and Blake who were more.
Weiss
I
was a
know
little
Yang
bit on
was-
the
mixed up
fence.
probably my characters.
Yang
Yang
definitely
was the one oh okay, everyone's talking.
You go ahead.
Yes.
So Yang, I actually remember this because I was on that episode. Okay, I was on that episode podcast. Okay.
Whiskey
to
is in
take-
Ruby confirmed.
No, I was not. I'd like to be. That'd be kind of fun. I'd like to be like a background drunk. That'd be fun. Okay,
Mhm.
so Yang was, because it was in episode 3. Ruby did not want to reveal because she didn't know who to trust. Blake, being Blake, the alley cat that she is, does not want to trust Atlas. She does not like Atlas. Weiss doesn't know who to trust as well. Yang is skeptical about this, and Oscar wants to tell Ironwood.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go.
I did a while back on this show point out that and talk about and bring up that Weiss, confronting Winter about people wanting to keep their secrets and things of that nature. I kind of brought up the idea back then that I felt that might have been Weiss questioning Ruby at that point as well. And I still do think that personally. I have nothing to back that up, but I do think that. But I think if I was looking for something to back that up, I would maybe point out to here. But also at the same time, looking at Ruby's smile in that scene, Weiss looking over and seeing that, I do think that's also maybe, Weiss recognizing Ruby's falling for that charisma. Weiss sees that Ruby could fall for that charisma of Robin's, right?
So clearly, this is all going back to Volume 1, where Weiss wanted to be the team leader.
Oh. Not quite, but
Um,
yeah. Moving on to the next thing. That's my little tirade out.
All right.
all right.
Well, the personal thing that I liked the most about this was just how much Oscar is getting to do here. He's really being this kind of
Yeah.
advisor for Ironwood and keeping him on this straight and narrow. And even though Ironwood's like, I want Ozpin's advice, Oscar's like, yeah, he might have said this, but this is what I'm going to tell you.
Yeah, he's not Ozpin. He has his own ideas about what should be done and how to use the information that's been given to him through the brain shakeup.
Yeah, and in a way, I'm kind of glad that Ozpin isn't around, but in the same way, I'm not glad that Ozpin isn't around, if that makes sense, because I really
Yeah.
miss Ozpin.
Ozpin is a very interesting character to play with.
So you know what I wonder, and this is something that I've questioned, is what if Ozpin himself, like the third host of Ozma back, transferred it into the young man who would become Ozpin, and the young man who became Ozpin was already more cynical than some of the other hosts. Like, do we know exactly what's Ozma's personality and what's the personality of the Ozpin? Or
Yeah,
Ozpin's whole situation is so confusing to me, and brings up questions of identity.
And somewhere in Volume 5 that he was an accumulation of men that he had inhabited, and I don't know. I want to know if that's true or if he was just that was a fib. Because if that's true, that's actually really interesting.
I take it as being true at this point. It seems to match up with what we know with what Jin has told us, which we know is a complete truth.
From a certain point of view.
Shush you.
But no, I say Jin is a complete truth, to be honest. She doesn't monkey paw around or do anything like that. She's very straightforward, very helpful.
Is she even capable of lying? Actually, no, let's not get into that. That's too much. I'm not in the mood to potato.
No potatoes tonight.
I'm
so
glad. Well, no, we'll get to that in a minute. I'll wait. I'll hold off still.
We're still talking about Oscar's role, right?
Yeah, we're still talking about Oscar and everyone kind of planning and Oscar coming to Ironwood. Ironwood having that that kind of doubting himself moment of it's all over, we've lost. What can we do now? And Oscar coming in and saying like, "Hey, you still can do something. Do something."
I like that, and I think that's a real that is a regathering moment, reprioritizing on what's important, what can be done. It's one thing to have grand sweeping ambitions like reveal and defeat Salem or protect, all these people and stop the fall of Atlas like Beacon. But at the end of the day, Ironwood and the rest of them are huntsmen, and the first job of the huntsman is to protect who you can when you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's what's going on right now, and that's what they need to focus on. Yep. All these other things are for tomorrow.
Right, and even with this, the score is very uplifting. It's the opening. What's Trust Love? You can hear that in the background, and it's being played all orchestral, and it really lends itself to this scene in particular.
Mm-hmm. And that kind of theme of this volume of trusting the people around you, and coming together, and being there for one another. Right?
Yeah, and we like so. I'm gonna get my word in. I didn't want to interrupt. I'm being a good boy. Y'all are mods.
Go ahead.
So like we just saw Ironwood hit a low, and then we saw him go even lower, and then you see Oscar with like I think Oscar is starting to replace Ruby's role of that youthful optimism. but not completely.
No. I think they're definitely striking a balance between who's proactive, who's leading, who's guiding. Other than Maria,
Yeah.
which they have put on a shelf, and I am very sad about.
Oh,
Tell
can we
me,
have our
Maria
sassy granny back?
Sassy
I want
Granny's gonna
Sassy Granny
sacrifice
back.
herself to save Penny. Penny's gonna die, and they're gonna have to bring her back again using Aura. And Sassy Granny's gonna be like, "Well, here's my moment to give back and be that protector that I should have been, instead of being a coward." And that's how Sassy Granny's gonna go out.
Oh my
I-
God, they killed Penny.
I have a different theory on how Maria goes out, but that is for a entirely different time.
Well, your
Well-
theory is wrong.
What
Well,
point are we on?
darn.
I'm so confused at this point.
We're on
Well,
no point
let's
right
get
now.
yes, let's get back on track. Everyone runs out of the room. Yes, the room. And this goes into Ruby and Oscar being adorable and Rose Garden being confirmed.
Oh no, not.
Okay, look. Before we trigger any shippers, Rose Garden is cute. Rose Garden is adorable. And like I saw that going all over on the main sub. Oh, wait, hang on. Everyone shush. Everyone shush. Shh. All right. I think we're going to have an extra guest. No.
We'll get to
No.
that.
Okay. No, all right. Okay. Anyway,
Go.
so okay, Rose Garden's cute. Rose Garden's adorable. But we've got a third wheel. All right?
Are we gonna go on about this? I really
We're
think
not
that
going
this is
on
not
about this.
this is not necessarily what we.
We're not going on about this. That's all I'm saying, and that's all we're gonna say about it. And Jelo, you're a little bitch for bringing it up.
Yes, I know I am.
I would like to talk about White Knight, but that's not. This is neither the time nor place. So.
No. I apologize. We could really go on about Rose Garden and its morality and all the issues that's with it. So
mean,
let's not do that and talk
Ignoring all of
about
that, right? It was an adorable
I
moment.
s-
It worked.
I
Yeah,
saw
it was
this as
them being
kids
dorks.
being cute. You know,
Yeah,
they're
no,
like
you've
still
got-
young hotshot heroes who want to take on the world.
You got two socially awkward kids being two socially awkward kids, and we haven't seen that. Gosh, I've missed that between those Ruby and John moments that we haven't seen, since that one time in Volume 1. It feels like.
John
Well-
has been robbed by the existence of Oscar.
well, John's all, sad and mopey and shit. He can't do that adorable stuff anymore.
I
The boy
mean,
has grown up and he is no longer cute.
Did you see him with the thirsty moms? I think he was pretty cute then. They definitely
He's
thought he was
cute.
cute.
He is cute in
Oh.
a different way there. That is called
Oh boy.
Oh, poor John.
Oh yes, poor
He's
John.
struggling. Oh, he's had a wild ride.
Yeah. His partner's still dead. That's still pretty sad.
Oh yeah, that was a thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was a thing.
Oh, we have someone joining us. Everybody, please welcome Helena to the podcast.
Yes. Say hello to a guest.
Hello.
Hello there.
All right. Hi, Helena. We are talking about Oscar. Or we were talking about John.
We're talking
Well-
about Oscar and Ruby being socially awkward together.
Mhm.
And
And
they
somehow
still-
John butted in. I don't know.
I brought that up because we haven't seen John be socially awkward since Volume 1. And I kind of missed that.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. Yeah.
we were talking about how
Right.
it probably has to do with him getting a bigger share of angst ever since, his partner and other things.
I mean, can you still be socially awkward when you are the show's suffering boy?
Probably? I don't know, honestly.
Oscar managed to do it,
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
He got punched that one time.
and he's
Oh,
definitely
true. Oh. Let's just pretend Volume 6 didn't happen.
He got shoved against the wall.
I like Volume 6, though.
Hmm.
There was Depression Licorice.
Man, I'm pretty sure that Oscar punch has been turned into so many great gifs. I love it.
All right.
Right.
I'll
Let's get
have
this
thoughts
back
on
on
Volume 6.
track and
Yeah.
actually talk about
Well,
what Oscar and Ruby
jumping
were
in-
talking about there.
Yeah.
Yeah, this train has been derailed like that one train in Volume 6, hasn't it?
Yes.
I'll take my ban.
Mhm.
Moving on though, yeah,
Permaban.
Oscar and Ruby are talking about telling Ironwood finally.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, this is actually something that I find interesting. They are actually telling him because they're inspired, I suppose you could say, by Ironwood deciding to tell the truth.
And because I think it was definitely some inspiration on what they heard Robin say, right? Like in that moment, like she inspired Ruby right there, I feel, to tell the truth because of how she, talked to Ironwood about him, about how Robin then felt like, okay, I used to think you were trying to hide something to protect yourself, but now I realize that I think you're hiding something to protect all of us. I think that's what ended up inspiring Ruby in that moment.
Yeah.
And I really hope that their trust is vindicated, because there is still the specter and the question of, in the long term, how is this going to pan out well? Or at least is Ironwood still going to be able to take this stand, and keep standing? But I think that if the theme of this volume is, about trust and about openness, I do think that their trust in Ironwood is going to be vindicated throughout the, in the long term.
Well, since it's Ruby and it is has this uplifting theme to it, I do believe that the trust will pay off in the end.
Yeah.
I should certainly hope so. It'd be pretty boring if it turned out that everybody in Ozpin's former circle couldn't be trusted.
There's Theodore.
I
We
know,
haven't
I know,
even
but it's,
seen him.
if anybody's read After the Fall, the way that Team Coffee describes him makes him seem like a bit of a pleb. So
I don't remember
Hey,
much
the
of After the Fall, so I'd have to reread it. Look, okay, so if we're going off the Wizard of Oz comparisons, I didn't like the reason Leo turned was because the
Fear.
cowardly lion type
yeah,
thing.
he was afraid of Salem.
Yeah, I mean, like that makes sense, but and the
Fear
Tin
leads to
Man
anger.
lacked the heart, so and like Ironwood
Well.
was shown to be pretty heartless in the beginning.
No,
No, I wouldn't go that far.
No. Okay, so I'm already beating myself up. Don't beat myself up for me. Because as
Pitchfork
soon
out.
as soon as I said that statement, I wanted to retract it. But he was shown to be headstrong, I think is a better
No.
word.
Yeah,
I get
Well-
what you're saying.
Yeah,
I'd agree with that
like
more.
My mouth is ahead of my brain. Please defer to my brain. Or my name. My name. Please defer to my Discord name.
Mm.
Well, I mean, the thing that I've always found interesting about Ironwood is that there's a certain way of looking at it, which I often do, where most of his actions are done because he already cares too much. He wants to keep his people safe. In Volume 2 and 3, he wanted to keep the people of Vale safe. But
Yeah,
in
he
that
had-
regard, it doesn't always pan out. So, I
They
mean,
got-
yeah, go for it.
The whole thing is that I remember, I think you've said this before, is that like he cares too much, and sometimes things spiral out of control because of that. And
Yeah.
I think that, in the end, though, his care isn't coming out of a bad place. So it's like,
No,
you know.
definitely not. And that was what was interesting to me about 2 episodes ago when Ironwood and Oscar were having that conversation in the vault, and he was questioning, well, if Salem isn't human anymore, does she still feel fear? And how do we fight someone like that? And the question that came up was, well, shouldn't we be more like that if we're going to be able to defeat her? Which I thought was, one, oh god, no, stop. Turn around, don't do that.
He's
And
become
2,
more
it was-
machine now than
No.
man.
That's hell
Oh,
you're
I-
walking
oh,
into.
God, yes.
But it
And
does
yeah,
work
well,
coming
like-
from him, though.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Like
think
the questioning
Ironwood
of
has
humanity and whether or not it's worth shirking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's shown himself to be a really empathetic character. And now that's pushing it, I think, though.
No, I
No,
don't
you
think
do-
it's pushing it at
You
all.
do feel for the position he's in because he's pretty much in the exact same position Osmond was in. Everyone's looking to him now for leadership. But at the same time, he is in a slightly different position that Osmond was in now because he's also
having
turning
yeah,
to
yeah.
his allies to say, hey, this is everything I know. I'm trusting you with this. Now help me come together with a plan.
Yeah, he's just
That-
having to make some really, really hard decisions. And like, I don't think we're all sitting here in our armchairs. And some of us may be in armchairs. I'm in an armchair.
It's
Oh
Yep.
my god,
Same.
same.
It's the
so
ruthless calculus of war.
yeah, so we're all here being armchair politicians right now. But Ironwood is having to make some really tough decisions with the supernatural, divine, and I don't think we have the right to like dig into that, like, but for entertainment purposes we do.
Right.
But if I don't, unless we're in those shoes, we don't really
Let's
Yeah.
hope
have
we
that.
never are.
Yeah.
God no.
We
Says
can,
you.
yeah. Well, I mean, from our armchairs, we can definitely speculate, but yeah, exactly. We can't really, we can judge, but we can't like really understand that sort of position.
Thank you. It is actually nice to have someone intelligent on this podcast for once.
Hey.
Rude! Come
Hold on a
on!
minute. I can understand because I am the Senate.
Nah, what he said.
Thanks, Sheev.
Muted.
What Whiskey said was fair.
Muted.
Wait, you muted the wrong person.
Banned.
No, I muted Whiskey.
That's the only person
You're
that can
unmuted.
be muted at the moment.
Wait, we can't mute each other?
No. Actually, yes. We
No,
can.
no, y'all are
Oh, yeah.
mods, so like I have to
Okay.
be on
I
like
can
I have
mute
to be on
all
my
of you.
best behavior. Look,
I've done it
no,
before.
no. Yes, he has. Oh my gosh, I remember this.
I can
Okay.
absolutely mute other mods. But anyways,
Okay.
Where
no,
were
look,
we
Yes,
again? I'm
let's get
sorry.
back on track. I think we've exhausted everything with Ruby and Oscar there. Let's move on to the flight in the they are still bullheads, right?
yeah, just call it.
I think
Iron
so.
Man.
Yes.
Right.
Like their
we'll call
call
them
sign
bullheads.
is Manta whatever, but I think they're still bullheads.
Okay.
Now I'm just
That
picturing
makes
a
sense.
bullhead, like a bull mixed with a manta
On
ray.
topic. Stop.
A Pokemon.
Yeah. So, they're going with the Aesops, and we got Ruby, Juniper, Crow. Then they're just gonna go to help, and the big old dinosaur attacks them. Because why not?
I love the terror. Like honestly, that is such a cool design.
Pretty sure it's pretty much a dragon, right? Or a wyvern.
Is anyone else getting Breach vibes?
It's a pterosaur.
Ah,
It looked okay. So it's been like 3 weeks. It feels like since I've seen the episode. It was like a pterodactyl. I thought. Let me see.
Yeah, something like that.
I can't remember.
Chang in here. I know that if I remember right, he says actually some kind of something that was actually a ground dinosaur and started with a D, but they just gave it wings for funsies.
no,
I mean, that's probably Salem's whole modus operandi for when she makes Grimm. But what if I gave it wings?
I mean, we saw that last volume with the Baron Gel.
Yeah,
Eh.
she was making the flying monkeys, so that was pretty fun.
Have we haven't seen those yet, have we? Like
No,
in
we
action?
haven't.
We have not.
I expect that next volume.
If
No,
only
and
I'm
if
this
we
so
was
wanna-
done.
nervous. I'm so scared.
Yeah, that'll
Fair.
be a little interesting.
Fear
do-
leads to anger.
I do
Anger leads
love-
to hate.
Hate leads to suffering.
I'll mute all of you again
Well-
if you start quoting Star Wars.
I was about to ask, please do that.
Yeah.
Strike me down and I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Okay, let's talk about Ren and Nora holding hands.
Yeah,
I think I don't. Okay.
I don't really have an opinion on that.
I think it was a good
I-
moment. Like you can still see, Ren being, I'm saying a lot. You can see Ren being very still out of it, still kind of questioning
Yeah.
things, still not quite there, and him and Nora still they're still not quite happy with one another right now.
So in
still-
my completely devoid, empty brain, that looked and felt completely platonic, because you can tell that like Wolf said, that Rin is struggling. There's something going on that we haven't quite seen yet, but a lot of us
Yeah.
have speculated on. I believe I brought up a couple episodes that his father said that something like having no plan is like taking, or like having no plan is just as bad as not acting, or something. Like I can't remember.
No,
yeah,
it's like inaction.
it was
is-
sometimes the worst action to take is no action at all.
Yeah, there you go. And like that's why he's so devoutly following Ironwood, is because he's just got a plan and he's got action. But
Right.
but like so like I feel like that was just kind of like a reassuring squeeze kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Well, he
Yeah, that's definitely
has.
what it felt like.
He's lost like 2 homes by this point. He lost his original hometown and he lost Beacon. And now he's seeing another safe haven possibly being destroyed. I mean, I don't know
Yeah,
what that
and
does to a person if you lose 2 spaces of safety and then the third one looks like it might come down on you and your friends again.
They're all gonna need some serious therapy at the end
Well,
of the show.
Do
Not
they even
only that,
have
right.
therapists in this universe?
Oh
Not-
God, I
not
should
a-
hope so.
They got.
I feel like shrinks are pretty well paid in Remnant.
Not only that, right? You
Mm.
do have to remember they did just learn that once more another safe haven that they had thought they had has been infiltrated again by their biggest enemy, right? Like
Yeah, so it's like
So-
the question of is anywhere in Remnant safe?
and then
The
like,
moon.
You have,
No.
you have to feel for Ren. And
Just
I am
yeet,
going-
yeet Salem to the moon.
John is
I'm-
just sitting there sleeping, I think, on his sword almost.
Alright, I'm gonna
probably
go on a
trying-
Boy got
tangent
airship
here.
sick again.
I'm going to go on a tangent here about Ren for a little bit.
And not a
Go
cosign?
for it.
Yes.
I've got my alcohol. Go for it.
Ah, Helena, I'm
Okay.
jealous.
So one of the things that I
Fuck it, I'm
see a
drinking
lot
too.
is that there is a dependence on Nora for Ren to ground her. She's all nonsense, and he brings her back down to earth. But something that I've kind of thought is Ren also needs Nora to help ground him. What I mean here is when he was a kid, he had his whole everything wiped away from him. His family killed, his town destroyed, all that. He's gonna be fucking depressed. And even his semblance, I would say, arguably kind of represents this. It's kind of one of the ways that you can kind of deal with grief is just to try and ignore it. That's my personal take. That's for another day, though. But the important part here is I think when they were kids, one of the things Nora would do for Ren is try to cheer him up. She would try to be happy and bubbly and playful to try and get her, to try and get Ren to feel better, because that's what all a kid would do. She wouldn't know how to properly handle the loss of all that. She'd just try to make him happy. And that's why I think she has that kind of personality. And throughout all of this, whereas Ren has kind of become responsible to pull her back, Nora has become this happy thing that Ren has that will pull him out of any kind of introspective funk that he has. Rant
think
over.
That, I think that that's a good take, honestly. Like, it's not just that Nora derives support from Ren. Ren derives support from Nora, and that's what they're a team together.
Yeah,
Right.
they've shown
It's-
themselves to have a very codependent relationship.
The codependent has some negative connotations in that word,
that
I
is
think.
okay.
it
I
does
don't
get
know.
your point across. Like they do depend on one another to make it through things, right? And that's understandable because they were both kind of orphaned together, and they've kind of had to grow up together and just learn to deal with one another, right? And they learned through that, like, why something would make the other feel, kind of nervous and worried, and they can pick up on that very quickly compared to other people, right?
Right. And
And
now
that's why
that
you have that
something's
moment between them.
right. And now something's thrown it out of whack, and you get all of this.
I really like conflict between Ren and Nora. I think that that's like the best type of drama is between the people who are the closest. Seeing it on screen is like the type of thing that makes you invested because you know both the characters and you know how both of them, care about each other and know each other so well. And, well, I could talk a little bit about my favorite partners going up against each other, but, you said no more Star Wars, so.
Yes, we did.
Well,
No,
I mean,
and I think
You
I
were my
absolutely...
brother, Anakin! I love you!
We have Helena
I-
here. I don't need you.
I absolutely honestly agree with that, but I also understand where people are coming from when they say they might not like it, especially because Renora has been like both the longest running and like the most solid relationship in the show. Even when they weren't together, like they had that sort of chemistry. So seeing that now sort of have conflict, I can get why it would throw some people off.
Right.
Yeah, I
John
think that's
still has-
one of. I'd like.
Sorry,
Okay, go on.
I was just making a quick joke about John's partner being dead again. I'm sorry.
Oh,
No!
Rip.
You are just grinding that one into the ground. That is just dust at this point.
I might be
Ha,
salt
like
from
Period?
Austin Shakespeare out there.
Okay.
Uh.
So I think poor Wolf. He is abusing the server mute button tonight.
Mm-hmm.
No, he's using it exactly how I'd like him to.
I think that's one of the reasons I've liked this volume so much, or it's kept me engaged so much, is we've seen those interpersonal conflicts, especially between those people that are close. Like, we haven't really seen Yang and RWBY clash like they have before, I don't believe, before this. And they aren't, like,
Well,
going against each other.
But they have
They
different
disagree.
ideas about
They
how
do
they
have
want to
different
proceed.
ideas, yeah.
No, I'm like that's what I'm saying. Like they're not like at risk of coming to blows at this point, or like separating. You can be family and have different ideas. That's family. But
Ain't that the truth?
but you've seen them have those disagreements, and you haven't. I cannot put my thoughts into words, and that is the worst feeling on this planet. But you haven't seen them have that kind of interaction completely before. The
Right.
only exception, I think, would be the apathy mini arc, but I don't want to count that because that's
artificially generated by the apathy Grimm, so
Yeah.
Mhm.
although
Well,
the
I mean,
underlying feelings were
yeah.
still there.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Exacerbated.
I have something to say about that.
Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
It wasn't just the apathy.
Alright, well, do we have anything more on that little plane ride?
Fucking
Yeah, it's a good thing they all practiced their landing strategies beforehand. I guess Ozpin must have been thinking in the back of his head that at some point you will have to get out of a high altitude situation safely.
Mm.
Well, I mean, I'd imagine since that seems to be the primary method of getting huntsmen to locations for their missions.
Well, it seems to work.
Yeah. I mean, still love Volume 4's bad landing strategy moment, so.
I still think Ozpin was a good teacher. He is flawed. I think he is a good teacher.
Since
He
we're
has
going
good
into
ideas.
that, let's roll that right into Oscar and Ironwood's talk. Oscar tells Ironwood the full truth. Getting back to Volume 7, Episode 9.
Yeah,
I'm upset. I'm
love
upset this happened.
this
I'm
moment.
upset
No,
this
I'm
happened.
not upset.
Screw
this
all
happened.
of you. I love this moment.
I
This
wanted
is
it to be
great.
RWBY.
I
wanted
liked
it to be
it, but
RWBY.
I liked it, but I wanted it to be different. I still enjoy what we got, but
I liked
I
it.
thought that both of them were gonna.
what Oscar
like,
tell.
be
I
able-
love how what Oscar says specifically, because Oscar in this moment says something that I love and that I love to link back to Ozpin, and I'm going to do that right here and now. He said Oz was worried about what you would do, that you would lose hope. I love that. I love that because that immediately tells you, one, it's coming from Oscar, the person who knows the most about Oz at this point, I would say, right? But two,
Yeah.
it tells us very
Yes.
clearly that, right, this is the kid's viewpoint, right? And this is Oz's viewpoint. Oz has, from experience, which is completely understandable, why he feels the way he feels, right? Like, make no mistake, Oz being unwilling to trust others is perfectly understandable, but I do think the show is, at this point, very much trying to set up this idea of Oz's failure wasn't that he's afraid of Salem. Oz's failure was that he was afraid of what others might do when he tells them the truth. He was afraid of people betraying him. He was afraid of people stabbing him in the back. And
You could
this came about because of his past experiences, and he let those past experiences taint everyone he ever met. He painted everyone with the same brush of, I can't trust anyone with the full truth. But yet he does need people he can trust. So he puts him in this very weird position of, that is his failure. His failure wasn't that what he did was wrong. His failure was that he became jaded. He became cynical of the world around him and the people within it.
I think I've made this same argument before, but Sierra, another user on this site, has made this good point to me. I mean, he was betrayed as recently as Lionheart. So he does have a lot of good reasons.
I love the fact that so many people are, right, like, you can see it from what I've noticed, right, that Ozpin and the way the show has been treating Ozpin and his opinion and what he did, right, with all the line and everything, with all the lion and everything, right? You've had this very much kind of clash between people who said, no, Ozpin was right. He was in the right for doing what he did. And then you have the other side of, but he still lied. That was wrong, right? I love this clash because I think the show has hit on this viewpoint of the world, right? That is very different between these two groups of being more cynical, of having people, you have many people, I'm sure many of us on this show right now could say that we've had people in the past who've probably taken advantage of our kindness or stabbed us in the back or just betrayed us after, we were open and honest with them, right? Everyone's, many people, if not everyone, have experienced that. So they can understand where Ozpin's coming from. And being told, right, if you've been through that, being told that that's wrong, that you shouldn't feel that way, that you should still try and be more open, that you're not just, that to feel like you might not be justified in feeling that way, that's hurtful. That can definitely sting. And that's why I sit here and say, like, Ozpin, is justified. He's right for doing what he did. He's right for feeling the way he felt. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But
okay, so
in his position, he does need people he can trust, and putting up those walls and painting everyone with the same brush and continuing to stay cynical of everyone and paranoid how anyone might react when he gives the full truth, of how anyone might, suddenly betray him or turn on him or take advantage of him, right? Does hurt him.
I agree with nearly every word you said there, Wolf. My gripe is, it's not necessarily a gripe, but what I would have liked to have seen differently is, I like that you said everything you said about Ozpin's personality and how he shouldn't have closed himself off and how he needed those allies was absolutely perfect. I agree with you 100%. And it was a beautiful scene. It was great. Actually, I wouldn't say perfect, but it was really dang close. But RWBY was the one who came up with the idea of hiding all of this stuff from Ironwood. And when we saw those,
I wouldn't call it an idea so much as a choice. That was kind of a split-second thing, I think.
Yeah,
but that's not important. Go on.
Yeah,
but she made the decision. Sorry,
but she made that decision. She took that leader choice upon herself, and then when she had that little adorable moment with Oscar there, she said she should be the one to tell Ironwood. And then Oscar goes and says all of that stuff. And that just, I didn't care for that too much.
I mean, the city is under attack.
And so I understand the urgency there, but I still would have liked to see RWBY do that, mainly because I just stand the hell out of RWBY, but still.
Fair.
Yeah, I
At the same time,
understand
I
that.
really like
I
Oscar, and I like that he gets to do this kind of stuff.
Anyway,
I do as well, but I also agree. Well, first of all, I'm like Sierra. I stand Ozpin pretty hard, but Demon, I do agree almost 100% with what you were saying. But I
Right.
do also agree
I've
that
been waiting so
it-
long to go off on that. That was great. I love that moment. Sorry.
no, it was a
Um,
beautiful rant. Do not get me wrong. It was a
I
beautiful
don't
rant.
agree.
um, gosh, I don't know how to put this. I do almost entirely agree, and we can argue about semantics all night, or like at least later, so that we don't completely derail this conversation again. But I honestly do agree with Whiskey as well. I think that as wonderful as it was to have Oscar have that moment to tell Ironwood, I think it would have been a lot, maybe not better, but better for her character to have Ruby have had to face that and do it herself. To have it come full circle and have her face the consequences of her choice.
Yeah, because it's
As the leader of
continually
the
brought
group,
up. Okay. Yeah, it's yeah, no, it's been continually brought up multiple times. Ruby, I think we should mention it to Ironwood. Ruby, I think things have changed. But she keeps backing down. But then we finally get to a point where she agrees, and then Oscar kind of just steals the thunder. I wouldn't call it
Okay.
thunder. I wouldn't call it thunder. This is not thunder. This is not Oscar stealing the show. Um,
No, I think I'm starting to understand what you're saying.
he does get one of the most like emotional heart scenes of the episode, though, which is central to just the two of them talking.
But do not get me wrong. I agree with you guys nearly 100%. And it was a fantastic scene. I just would have liked to have seen Ruby open that, just present the news
And that's fair.
instead.
All
I
right.
think that's completely fair. And I think like you still could have gotten a very similar moment, right, to that explaining of Ozpin's ideology and the kids' ideology, because that is kind of what the clash is here, right? It's a clash of the kids being, maybe you might call it more naive, maybe you might call it more risky, but it is their ideology of being more open, of seeing, what they've seen. They've kind of seen the fall of Beacon and what happened at Haven. And in their experience so far, it doesn't seem like Ozpin's ideas and plans have worked all that well for them specifically, right?
Yeah.
So you can see where they're coming from in terms of this is why we feel the way we feel compared to why Ozpin felt the way he felt.
Yeah, and it's
All right. Well,
probably not 100% relevant, but if you think back to right before they, just committed high crimes against Atlas in Volume 6,
Oh God, let's not get into that again, please.
Crow was just like, he was just not feeling it, but Ruby was taking charge, and she said, if you think you can keep up with us kids, come along, or something to that effect. And that just, that line kind of just, I think that kind of applies here in this conversation. Chew me out if I'm wrong.
no, I get what you're saying. Even episode 13 of Volume 6 was our way. They are forging their own path. They aren't going along with just what happened in the past.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Right, well, let's look at where that path leads. How Jimmy reacts. I gotta say, fucking props to the guy. For going
I
through
was
every.
expecting
Yeah.
anger. I was
Yeah.
expecting so
Same.
much anger, man.
Right,
Like,
and-
I was scared.
Yeah,
no,
and even
that's what
even here
that's
on
what
this Discord, Helena, I've seen you plenty of times just love Ironwood and all that, and you still think it was going to be anger.
I think
I
that's
did
just
mostly like. Oh no, go
uh,
ahead.
Can we get a talking stick?
Go for it, Senate. Senate, you go first. I'll go after him.
I mean, you've heard me all joke about, oh, I think Ironwood's going to assume emergency powers. Oh, I think that it's going to show the fall of a man who had the best of intentions and took those intentions and those means and that power he was given and took it too far. But I think that's not what happened, and I'm glad that's not what happened. And I think at the core, you see him come back from, but you still see him. He's beat down. He's still beat down in that scene. He tells Oscar, "I hope there's no more surprises because I don't think I can take anymore." That line to me, it just shows how much he's been through, how much he's willing to go through, how much he's continually sacrificed for the sake of the mission Ozpin and he have gone through together, and his own role as a military general and as someone who is supposed to be the guardian of one of the greatest cities in the world. He takes that upon himself, and he still has this responsibility as the headmaster, as the general. But he rose, or at the very least, he's taken it far better than many of us ever expected. So I hope to see that continue, because the trust Oscar and RWBY have placed in, I think, will be and should be vindicated if, we're talking about the theme of what decisions Ozpin made wrong and what decisions these kids have to make going forward, since the fight is with them now. They are no longer just observers. They are involved in this war full force.
Mhm.
So yeah, I love his face in that, and his reaction, and just kind of saying, like, why couldn't or why didn't Oz trust us with this? Like, that was his main concern. He wasn't upset, he wasn't angry, he was hurt that someone he viewed himself as an equal with, as he felt that, hey, I stood on the same level with this guy, we were equals, and we could relate, or at least what he felt like they could relate. And he finds out even he wasn't completely trusted, right? Like, that hurt him. That majorly hurt him. And props to the VA and the animation team for showing that, right? Like, they did great with that scene with Ironwood.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say, like, huge fucking shout out to Jason Rose for voicing Ironwood this volume. He has been, like, rock solid the entire time.
Oh yeah.
But in terms of why wasn't Ironwood angry, though, that's what happened after that door closed and you could no longer see or hear him. Just an immediate, "Oh my God, Ozpin, you mother!"
Remember in Volume...
Oh my God, it would be too. Flips the table.
He doesn't want to embarrass himself in front of the kid, like Oscar. I'm just taken back to this scene in Volume 2. He said, what was it? "I have done my best to serve you." I think it's something along those lines.
I have served you faithfully for years.
Yeah, I think that, like, Ozpin, just like Crow in a way, I think that, like you said, equals, but also that Ozpin could have been like a mentor and a guiding figure to both those men, and they both saw him as a leader and someone they could, just like people are leaning on Ironwood now, both of them leaned to Ozpin's wisdom.
Yeah, that's how Ozpin set himself up as this leader / mentor.
Yeah, so I'm just thinking that, at least Ironwood didn't punch a kid.
Thank you for not touching the boy. Thank you.
It's
Can
too
you
late.
imagine?
It's too late.
Oh God, I would have left. I would have quit. Stop abusing Oscar 2020. I would have fucking walked out.
Helena, that's why Ironwood closed the door, and that's why he walked into another room.
I hate to inform you, but Ironwood's already thrown hands with Oscar a couple times.
Okay, no, that doesn't really count. That's
trade.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
Well,
no. I really like that scene. I'm gonna throw my 2 cents in now that all the adults are done talking. I love that scene. It was great. I love, like you guys said, you guys have actually more or less made all the points I could have made. So I'm just gonna have to make little carrot sticks and be like, "Yep, I agree. Yep, I agree." But I like how I wouldn't necessarily say he recovered immediately, but he stood back up and at this point he's just got to take it in the moment because
Oh yeah.
that's so just I didn't think Ironwood would be a character we'd see character development from, but I'm glad we are.
Mhm.
I'm genuinely glad we are.
There's a
I
reason he's my favorite.
I
He
just
is-
realized we are going to miss Ironwood when
We
he's
We
are.
gone.
are
Oh,
going
God.
to miss Ironwood
So much.
Whoever becomes the next sort of adult head, like when we meet the Shade headmaster in the show, if we ever do, because it might be something that the novels
Right.
put on entirely on themselves, but they're gonna have a lot to live up to.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. For me, honestly, what it wouldn't I think words
Take your
coming out of my
time,
mouth
take
your
not,
time.
not clicking together.
Go on.
Wheels are turning. 1 second.
That's fair. Yeah. Completely fair.
I've got some WD-40 if you need it.
Oh, when you were talking about Volume 2, the other thing that like clicked in my head for that, and somewhat for the conversation between Ironwood and Oscar, but more so for like the entire volume, he had a conversation with Glinda at the start of chapter 10 of Volume 2, Mountain Glen, where they were out on the landing pad. It was night in Vale, and
alright.
Ironwood was talking about how they had both trusted Ozpin for years, but that he couldn't help but feel like Ozpin was keeping them in the dark. And then Glinda,
Really?
yes, and then Glinda responds that James needs to stop talking about trust and start showing it, because Ozpin has experience that they both lack, and that she thinks that's worth remembering. Which is just
Completely forgot
thinking about that conversation now, and thinking about how much things have flipped between that sort of relationship between Ironwood and Ozpin is just really, really interesting to me. Like,
Does
you could argue that the whole thing in Volume 3 happened was because Ironwood didn't trust Ozpin enough to know what he was doing, so he took what happened in Vale to the council and was like, look, Ozpin can't look after the citizens, let me do it with my army, at least for the Vital Festival. And that was the whole thing at the very end of Volume 2, where the council was saying that after the Vital Festival wraps up, they would talk about his position as headmaster, which, like, completely flipped now in Volume 7, and now it's Ironwood having to deal with all that. So I think that parallel is both like it's interesting to me to see how different things are now.
I think it's a real shame that it's basically impossible unless they get a new voice actress to think about what Glinda's reaction to all the
Oh my
events and all
god,
the
please bring
information.
Glinda back. I miss her.
Yeah, that they can do that, but I think if we're talking about Glinda's new voice actor, we're good enough on this scene. We got 2 more to go. So let's talk about Whitley. This was a very short scene.
I have a lot to say about this one.
Oh, my poor boy.
This was a very short scene, but I very much enjoyed it because I like Whitley and I dislike the people that dislike Whitley.
There was a lot said in that moment without any words.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that who wants to talk?
I'll do it because I got things to say.
Oh, okay. I don't have much to say, so
Go first then.
Okay. So I've said it before, but and I'm sure one of you are already going to repeat this, but people already see Whitley as irredeemable. And he's not. let's go ahead and get that out of the way. He's a kid trapped in a city, bad situation. But let me see if I can find. It's not worth it.
Take your time.
Regardless, but Whitley's worldview has just crashed around him.
Mhm.
So, and there's something called the 4 Fs, I believe, of like abused
Right,
households or whatever.
of
And Whitney,
handling abuse. There's like flee,
Yeah.
fight, something else, and fawn. Fawn
Fight,
is
fawn
what?
is-
Freeze.
fawn, and freeze.
yeah,
Right.
and Fond, I believe, is what Whitley has done, and he's attached himself to Jock so hard,
Right.
and
This is
he-
because what fawn means is to more or less appease the.
yeah. So, and now that Jock is gone, that whole thing is just kind of fallen apart. And so that's why we see Whitley walk off. So I'm very curious to see what's going to happen to Whitley, because we
Yeah.
saw that his father has gotten to him, but do we know if it was in order to appease his father, or was it to actually, or did his father actually,
Means something.
yeah. So that's all I have to say about it, unless one of you guys spur a thought in my head.
Jello.
So
Alright.
I
Right.
pass the torch on to Jello.
Yeah, that's more or less the gist of what I'm thinking here. Whitley has the only thing that in his life he thought valued him and had any kind of value to him has been arrested for apparently some of the most heinous crimes that Atlas has ever seen.
Well,
Because
it's
of
treason
Weiss.
then.
Remember that key detail.
Quiet, you.
Remember, because of Weiss, because of what she did, his world
Yeah, and
crashed.
that's
now.
just rubbing
Yeah.
salt into the wound.
Oof.
His barbaric
the
sister
one who left him.
arrested his father.
Both his sisters
Oh,
have left him
no.
again,
Remember that.
and he watches his father be arrested. And you know,
The
I'm going to
sisters
say
he
this,
hates
and
arrested his father.
I wouldn't say it's
And
the
of
sisters that he
course-
hates, but it's the sisters that they left him. They
They left
him
him.
alone.
Didn't his mother
with-
say?
Yes, like
They were-
that's exactly what Willow told Weiss. Like,
Yeah.
Whitley.
Yeah. Please
does
don't
care
forget
for
about
you.
your brother.
I think that whatever else, I think that some people say, oh, basically like Jacques was still Whitley's father,
Mhm.
and Whitley watches Jacques hauled away just like a criminal, and just like he's complaining,
is.
and I'll say this, that was hard to watch. It was a little bit harder for me to watch because never mind.
That's
Alright.
fair. It's understandable.
There's
It hit you a lot harder because of personal reasons, right?
there's things.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
fair. That's completely fair.
Yeah.
Regardless
I'm
of
in the exact
whatever,
same boat, yeah.
like, regardless of whatever Jacques has done or not done for Winter or Weiss, Whitley was there in the home. He was there with his father, there with his mother. There's like the whole thing about the prodigal son and the dutiful son, which is a parable. And Whitley really was,
Good
I
parable.
think, the son who he was there. He sees the home deteriorate around him. Everyone else gets to, his mom retreats into alcoholism. His sisters get to leave to live their own lives. But he there is alone with his father and his neglect and his mistreatment of the family. And he's like a year or two younger than Weiss.
It's something
He's-
like that. We don't really have an
I
exact
say
age
he's the
with
same.
most characters.
He's at least the same
I'd
age
say
as
he's the same
Oscar.
age as Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
At least.
14,
He's a
15.
young kid watching it, like you guys said, he's a young kid watching his world fall apart. I mean, his entire country is not considered safe. His father's being arrested, and he's going to have to live eventually with the fact that, his dad committed treason, and the fact that, whatever happens after this, he's going to have to live with, being Jacques Schnee's son, That's something that he's
The-
scared.
Yeah.
This sounds like
Yeah.
And to put on top of this,
right here.
yeah, to put on top of this, I don't understand how Atlas Law works or how the SDC is put up, but Whitley
Oh,
is the heir.
He's the heir.
Yeah.
So I would assume that he's now the CEO by default.
Yeah. So not only have Weiss and Winter left him and taken his father away, they've now dropped this huge responsibility on his shoulders.
Mhm.
But at the
Which, I
same
mean-
time, you got to remember that he's like
He's still a
we've
minor.
established, he's a minor,
Yeah.
14, 15. So
Yes,
that might
but
fall to Willow or
A lawyer, perhaps.
someone,
Yeah.
Right. On the flip
until-
side, Ruby was allowed to get into Beacon, so anime
Well-
laws and logic.
Yeah, Ozpin will
If-
bend the rules to whatever he pleases. We have seen this.
if I may hop in here real quick.
Go ahead.
Speaking of RWBY, when it comes to the fandom's reaction to all of this, what strikes me is that people seem to forget that Whitley is just a kid. He's 14. He's at least 14, at least the same age as Oscar. And like the only frame of reference we have for that is Volume 1 RWBY, who was very, very, very different in circumstance and attitude than either of them.
Mm.
So
Right, that's
in some way we don't really, unless you have somebody who is that age, or you remember what it was like when you were that age, or you have a sibling that age like I do, it can be difficult to kind of grasp how people think when they're that young and how things look to them, and the fact that they are just still kids. Like Whitley is young. So I mean, it and people jumping to demonize him and saying that like he's just like a mini Jacques, he's not going to change, he's been complacent this whole time. It's it's kind of, I don't
frustrating.
know. Not
It's
yeah.
it's not giving the character and his circumstances and just where he is in his life and in his world. It's not giving them as much consideration. Although this is just something we do with fictional characters and even real life people sometimes, is we make these snap judgments. Like if watching Volume 4 again, and you just see this character and, oh, he betrays Weiss. He is bad to a character we have invested time and emotion into. So we've made this judgment, and then we have all of Volume, I think, 5 and 6 to like not think about this character. And then he comes
Solidify
back
that image.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
And-
people are just too ready to dogpile onto something sometimes.
Yeah.
I kind of see that a lot with oh, this person slighted our favorite character, that kind of deal.
Yeah. How dare?
Still though, I mean, like there was part of me that did want to see him become a little evil mastermind like Artemis Fowl, but that's
There's
totally
still time.
outside of the
There's still time.
Totally
he could be
outside the
he
scope.
could be mini Watts.
But
Oh my god.
Just give.
I don't
just
even
give
want
him a
to
fake
think
mustache.
about how that's gonna go down.
Just give him a fake mustache. He's great.
Better yet, give him a real mustache.
but I got a question for all of y'all. What did y'all think about Willow? She in that scene.
I love
Whoa.
her.
That was interesting.
I
For
love
one of
Willow.
the things that I'm kind of thinking, I think Will might be one of the people that can talk to Whitley, but that requires her to be able to talk.
Yes.
I
Um,
don't know.
I would.
I was actually a little bit I expected, right, when she turned around there would be a smile on her face, but there wasn't. That one in the moment it shocked me, but the more, having been able to sit back and think on it, I'm actually not shocked that she wasn't smiling. because
I think she's just so far down the hole at that point.
potentially,
She's
but also I
tired.
think that
Yeah,
for
tired is a
her,
great way to
it's
put it.
and that's definitely, I don't think there's anything wrong with that, and I think and I would agree with you, right? But I also think, right, that she's very much in a bit of a similar situation to Whitley, and also the fact that she does turn to look at Whitley, and she's not smiling at him,
Right.
she's not smiling about what happened because she knows where Whitley stands, and she kind of sees very clearly like what this would do to Whitley, right? Which I find interesting. Like you can still see like there is that motherly care there, even though it's definitely buried under a lot of alcohol.
Oh yes, I think that honestly, there is, I think there is a chance for Willow and Whitley to sort of reconcile and start to rebuild
Right.
a life, but I'm not sure if the show is going to give them that time or opportunity.
No, that's fair.
That's
I mean-
gonna take
And
a while.
I don't mean that in like a, oh, it's going to be written badly way. I mean that in a, things are moving now, I don't
yeah.
know if we're going to have the time kind of way.
Well,
Right.
it depends. Do you guys believe that what would be volume 8 now, right?
We're in
After
volume
this
7.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so do you believe that volume 8 is going to be another Atlas-centric volume, or do you believe that
Yes.
Currently, still yes. That could
Yeah.
change. Within the
16
next
episodes
episode,
up in Atlas, bitches.
I would like to see that. Because we focused a lot on. Okay, yeah, we're getting off track. Anyway, go on,
Yeah.
Wolf.
Yeah.
I'll say this, right? Considering they're talking about evacuating the people of Mantle up to Atlas, we very much could get another arc in Atlas focused on retaking Mantle. That
Yeah,
could be
Or
the
they could
focus.
just cut the tethers on Atlas and start flying the city around. Could be
I
fun.
think-
We're going airship, bitches. Let's go.
I think
that's
Helena and I
Columbia
had
from
a
BioShock?
Helena and I had a conversation about this. Like, we spent a lot of time talking in Mantle this volume. Next volume, we'll spend more time in Atlas and the consequences of Mantle falling and the effects of, I guess, not necessarily overpopulation. Well, it could be overpopulation.
Crowding.
Yeah, over.
But the
Class
crowding,
divides and stuff like that.
yeah,
That could be
which
fun.
would be a new level of intrigue. Because RWBY has a lot of these elements, and they've handled a lot this volume, and I think they've done them well, in my brainlet opinion. So
They will go
Alright.
cyberpunk in volume 8.
But
We could.
Yes.
But before we get to volume 8, we need to go through one more thing.
Oh boy.
Well, or
Oh,
a
yes.
bunch of different things, but like one thing for this podcast.
oh no
One thing.
no.
You thought
Oh.
it was a new character, but it was me,
All right, okay. So
Neo.
all right. So this topic will have me ranting for a solid 15 minutes because I hate Cinder to every bone in my body. I'm going to say this. We saw Neo last episode. A lot of people kind of suspected it, but after seeing Neo's
did.
disguise,
I completely missed
we
that.
Well,
actually,
people, yeah.
yeah, no, but Neo had the ability to just kill off everyone in the dining room last episode, and she didn't do that for whatever reason. I guess she just wanted to stay safe. But
She
no,
could
she
have
was.
shanked Ironwood through the back of the chair.
Yeah, no,
mean-
but if you guys missed
Well-
it, she was the waitress on the right. She was obviously green-haired.
Yep.
I think she had
Green-eyed
straight
black
black
hair.
hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
But fan favorite Neo's back. Some people like Cinders. Some people hate her to the
Don't.
core and would rather see her, die like she should have in Volume 5.
I mean,
But
And
that's
some people are Sorel.
Oh,
but
no, let's
that's
not.
Nope.
it.
Nope. Let's talk about what you think Neo and Cinder are gonna get up to.
But that's
That's-
probably it from me right now. We'll see.
I'll say
I'm sorry,
They're
that was
going to do
bad
the
of me.
same-
it's
They're going to do the same thing they do every night. Try to take over
Try
the
to
world.
take over the world.
I mean, joking aside, though, it seems like they've mostly decided to stay low key, and Cinder's goal is generally twofold: the acclamation of more personal power and revenge on people who have wronged her. And
Let's fucking
in that
murk Ruby.
in that regard, they don't need to take over a city or cause the downfall of an academy. Those results from Beacon and Haven were like I don't want to say ancillary because that implies that they weren't important, but to Cinder
They were a
herself,
means to an end.
they were a means to an end. Her main goal is achieving more personal power through getting the maiden powers, I assume, and delivering the relics to Salem, which I think I have headcanon that this is more of a transactional bargaining sort of deal. Like, she works with Salem to gain more personal power. Whether or not Salem gets the relics or not is like not something Cinder necessarily places emotional stakes in. So now that Salem is no longer really supporting Cinder doesn't feel obligated to help further her Salem's goals or whatever. She just wants unlimited power.
Oh, she also wants to kill Little Red.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is, if I say anything next episode, Cinder and Neo going after RWBY, maybe? That's my thought.
Well, I mean, the whole thing in Volume 6 was Cinder asking Neo to help me get to Atlas, help me find her, and then you do the rest.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like,
Well, what I'm thinking right now is Cinder is out in this fight because of Silver Eyes, which leaves Neo. And right now, RWBY and Harriet are together, which, look, Neo is just gonna get fucking outpaced.
Nah.
There's no way.
nah.
Unless the thing that happens that I would rather didn't happen, and Harriet's a traitor. Dun dun
Nah,
dun.
right, there's always...
I don't
It's
think
kinda-
that doesn't.
Don't be the traitor, sassy
God.
bunny girl. I like you too much.
Oh my god, no. Did you guys see Neathom's tweet? He reblogged this fucking tweet that listed off like all of the sets of 4 that there are in the show, and then they're like, but there are 5 Aesops, and Neath just fucking reblogged with a winky face, and I'm like, Neath, no, you can't do that to us.
Hang on, I gotta look this up.
Look,
He's a
I mean,
motherfucker.
all of Kirby has been doing this kind of stuff
they
all
have.
volume.
They're such
Yeah,
trolls, and I don't know if I love or hate them for it.
I think
I-
Eddie's been the absolute worst about it this volume.
I love them for it.
I think that
I
in
really do.
general,
It shows a lot of
Neo got
passion from them
somehow
on
is
it.
probably
They're gonna
Neo
kill Harriet.
probably-
Neo's gonna kill Harriet. That's what's gonna happen. They're gonna kill my
it's a
favorite.
sneak attack.
I shouldn't have
It's a
picked my
sneak
favorite.
attack.
I shouldn't have picked my favorite. That's the problem.
I still stand
You
by the
should.
fact that Nora's gonna die this volume.
No,
God, please,
they
no.
wouldn't. They
No.
wouldn't do that.
No.
They wouldn't dare.
Look,
They
I
would.
want I do want a Nora versus Ren like actual fight at some point. So you can't kill Nora yet. Like, I want them to fight. Like Captain
Their
America.
melodrama
Civil
has
War.
to play out.
Yeah, like full ass. Like, oh shit.
Going
I mean,
full Civil War.
yes.
going back to
I
the
can
Neo
do this.
reveal-
Ren can do this all day.
Going back to the Neo reveal, I will give them a little bit of, like, hey, I wish you could have done this just a little bit differently. I wish they wouldn't have held on the image of Neo as the waitress and just the smile so long. I wish they wouldn't have done that. I think it would have been so much better to see her as the waitress, walk out of the manor and just start skipping, and then you get that music sting. That would have
Yes,
been
I-
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
It was-
the
It was a
thing
little
we
bit
got
too
earlier
obvious.
was too obvious, right? Like that
It's like
was
winking
too
at
on
the
nose.
camera.
Like, we didn't need it at that point. I think it was great. Like last episode, she's just there in that room the entire time, and people who
Yeah, I never
recognize
saw it.
that costume could immediately say, "Wait a minute, I've seen that black hair, green eyes before. Is
Mhm.
that?" And then you get this episode, and we don't get the scene of the close up on the waitress who smiles. Instead, it just goes to her walking out of the house, and then immediately she starts skipping. It's like, whoa, mind blown. That would have, I
Mhm.
think, worked just a little bit better and just made that scene that much better, right?
Yeah,
Right.
they dropped it just a little bit too soon.
Yeah. But that's
Personally,
just a
I
slight
think
nitpick.
that like eventually the whole thing is that Neo somehow got information about the Winter Maiden's location somehow, and she's gonna give it to Cinder. Meanwhile, RWBY is going to have to fight Neo on her own somehow.
I feel like RWBY
Well-
at this point could handle Neo.
Yeah.
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 We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see. I don't
I'm
know.
kind of
Yeah.
quick on that.
Ah.
Well, she's
But-
not
but
white. She's
what's-
not gonna lose every fight.
What interested
winning
me
at
was
1v1.
that Yes.
I'll fight you.
What Weiss winning a
I'll
fight?
win.
What? Um, what interested me was that Cinder said, well, two things. First thing was, Cinder said, "Tell me that you found what we were looking for." Not like, tell me that you found her or anything to indicate that she was looking for Ruby. They were looking for something else. Which I'm like, what could it be?
Isn't the relic still on Oscar's belt?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I
Yes,
saw that.
which brings me to my second point, which is that they are in a room overlooking Atlas Academy. I feel like that framing was very intentional. I
Oh,
feel
yeah.
like Oscar is in danger.
They're either going after
No.
Oscar
Oh,
or they're
no.
going after Ruby, right?
They
I
are
didn't
going to
notice
kidnap
those.
Oscar just a volume after we thought it was going to happen.
Yeah, I'm like, that is my
Oh,
bet.
no.
I'm like placing
wanna point
attack
out-
in that.
I
Don't
just
do
want to
this to the
point out,
farm boy.
Jelo
no.
stopped doing his, hiatus betting thread and all of that thing, right? I want to point out, before you stopped it, my bet was that Cinder would end up with the lamp. Like, I had a bet that Neo and Cinder would end up with the lamp during the hiatus. I said this. Mine was a bit more specific, so I'm waiting to see if what I thought was going to happen happens. But if it does, I am your prophet.
You get to tell us all you told us, though.
Yes.
Wise
Okay.
prophet.
I will have to go and look back on that.
You will.
I'm making a bowing motion. You can't see it, but I'm bowing. Right?
Out with the prophet dishwasher, in with the prophet demon wolf.
Mm-hmm. I can't draw as good, though, unfortunately. Still got to
The
go to
wolf
him.
side of the force is a pathway to many abilities.
Damn it.
Some consider to be unnatural.
Son of a bitch, you did it.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
You can't put
This
me
is
and
why-
Helena in another
Yeah.
in one of these ever again. You
It'll
can't
be
do
just-
this.
Prequel memes all night.
Okay, do we have anything other to say about this episode?
Damn Star Wars nerds.
It's a good episode, and it gives a
It
lot
is.
of good emotional moments. It sets things up. It has some action, so I can't wait for the next episode tomorrow.
Agreed.
Oh heck, can I yell about the music for a second?
Oh, that's in less than 12
Go
hours.
ahead.
Okay, so God, I swear, every single time I open my mouth about the music, I have to stop and think if what I'm about to say will get me in trouble. There, when I was talking with Alex Abraham back around the start of the volume, he mentioned to me that Trust Love, the opening for this volume, was particularly difficult to integrate into the score. He managed to do that twice now. Once back with the Yang and Blake talk in episode 7?
Something.
Yes. But it played again in this episode, and it was a big, sweeping sort of orchestral as they're all running out
Right.
of the dining room. And
We
that was
did
awesome.
we did touch on this earlier, but since you are the expert, do you have anything
Oh
more
gosh, no, I'm far from that. I will,
You're more
Plug
qualified than
something,
any
though.
of us.
if anybody is interested in hearing a little bit about that sort of signature sound that we almost always hear when Neo is around, go over to the RWBY subreddit and have a look. Either it's Alex's username on Reddit is u/iheartvis. It's I underscore the sort of well, actually no, I think it's just HEART underscore VIS. And he has a post that he made in the episode discussion thread for first members, where he goes over the instrument that he uses almost exclusively for Neo whenever she's on screen. That sort of wind chime sort of cue that he uses. So if anybody's interested in that, go check it out, because he has been doing a kick-ass job this volume.
I think Wolf will be nice and link it for us.
Thank you.
I'll have to find it, but sure, put that on me. Go.
I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
There you go.
There, that. Alrighty. Well,
Give him more work.
with Wolf having to do a bunch of extra work tonight,
Work him like a
We-
dog.
how else would I do it?
He's
Anyways.
a wolf, though.
Boo your jokes.
Hey.
Alright, well, we have been the Cacawphony, and we hope that you've had fun on this extra long episode. I'm not
I
sure
know.
where we're at.
I know I've had fun. This
I
is where
have
the fun
had-
ends.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you for entertaining my weirdness coming in halfway through.
Mm-hmm. Alright,
Oh,
well,
it's all right.
Makes for a fun podcast.
yes, it has. So
I mean, I came
with
here
that-
last minute too, so.
Alright, well, with that, I've been Jelo.
I was Wolf. That's your go.
I-
Helena. You're supposed to say it. We do it
I've
in
been Helena.
order.
I am the Senate.
I'm whiskey, and apparently I'm a racist.
May the force be with
Be
you.
with you. Always.
Night.
Until next time, we will see you. That's what you get. Goodbye.